Chapter 6. Valentine. When the bus driver said, "Wake up, this is your last stop, Nevermore," I scurried off the bus after angling my backpack on my shoulder, reaching for my carry-on. Then I checked my pockets on my way outside to make sure I hadn't forgotten anything. I couldn't afford to lose one quarter because I had less than $20. I sucked in a hard breath, waited for the people in the front seats to step outside, before I reluctantly bounded off the bus. Standing at the foot of the door closing behind me, I sucked in a deep breath, took a look around and wondered what next. Once I was on the sidewalk, I stood in one spot, turned around looking for a place to get a hamburger. My stomach grumbled, and I reached inside my backpack and pulled out my last apple. After taking a bite, my thoughts prompted me that I had been a fool not to take the stranger up on his offer. However, I knew enough not to get into a stranger's car in the middle of nowhere. Too many gay teens had bad experiences traveling alone, and had been susceptible to a kind smile from someone they didn't know. If there was one thing Sam and my mother taught me, it was not to put my trust into a warm smile, promises, and some adults. And if you couldn't trust your mother to keep you safe, then who could you trust? I thought. I wandered down the sidewalk looking at the storefronts, thinking about that man called Brian. I wanted to trust him, and if I'd given him time and been a little less combative, then I would have discovered everything I needed to know. My eyes were open now, and I finally allowed myself to see men for who they were, and for once I had plenty of time to concentrate on myself. If you did nothing else for hundreds of miles but stare out a window of a Greyhound bus seeing dry, barren desert and cacti, wondering about your future, you could learn some things about yourself. Sam was wrong for me, but this man Brian, he was the right one. However, it had been too late. That opportunity had come and gone, and might never come again. Brian had soft, sympathetic brown eyes, his voice low, easy, and comforting. A man I could have put my trust in, but for one thing I had been afraid that if I trusted him I would be disappointed. He was older than me, so maybe I reminded him of his son. I didn't know, but the look in his eyes signaled that he wasn't looking for a son, and he didn't appear to be a man that wanted something from me the way the others who'd populated my life had before. What I took away from that encounter was, he was being honest when he said that he wanted to give me money to help me out, even if I didn't go with him, and he didn't want anything in return. He'd said all he wanted was to give me a ride to my destination, or money if I needed it. I needed it, but I didn't want to take anything from him, because I liked him a lot, and I had been too embarrassed to let him know that I was broke, but anyone could see that, so who was I fooling? I had no idea where my next stop, Nevermore, would be, and I had no money or hotel for the night. I didn't want to reveal that either, and I'd promised myself that I wasn't going to trust a man his age again. I had been burnt by men older than me, and I swore I wouldn't go that way again. To be able to live with my decision, I rationalized that he was a stranger, and I couldn't trust that my decisions had been wrong in the past, and he could have done me harm. I was on my own now, and to make it through this life as a young gay man, I had to know men. I was still too young to learn everything I needed to, and I had no one to give me direction. Ambling around town pulling a carry-on, no one seemed to notice or care that I was a stranger. They smiled and nodded, and asked if I needed help. I politely answered that I didn't, even though I knew better. It came to me immediately that this was a place I could stay a while, until I could put together some cash, and then buy a ticket to New York. I headed up Main Street, and the first place I saw had a sign which said they needed waiters or bartenders for day and night shifts. Wow, how lucky could I have gotten? I asked myself. I met a man I was attracted to who didn't want anything from me, and now this. Standing and gazing at the sign, I couldn't help wondering how it would have been if I'd agreed to take that stranger up on his offer for a ride. I wondered if he would stop off here in Nevermore. Looking at his sports car, that was highly unlikely. This place was made for SUVs with women driving their children to school, or those larger SUVs where families would take trips out of town and spend time at a lake house. It had all the things I dreamed about when I was a child and as a teen. I thought by now that would be me driving around relaxed, heading out of town to a home in a small town where I could enjoy the clean air, and I'd have all the money I needed, and I could work when I wanted, and not when someone pushed me for their own selfish reasons. Standing in front of the bar, I thought I should try to get this job and not look for something else. My mother would say, "A bird in the hand is better than several in the bush." She'd make that comment when I didn't want to take the first thing offered me. Therefore, I rang the buzzer. The sign said closed. Open at 6. I glanced at the time on my phone. It was 5:30. I watched through the window as a heavy-set man marched up to the door. I guessed the owner. He turned a key and opened the door. His smile was infectious and as warm as the other townspeople, and I instantly calmed down. My hands didn't shake because of the importance of making money to take care of myself. Then he said, "Can I help you?" It was something about the warmth and comfort of how he'd said those words that set me at ease. "Come in, will you?" Another smile. Hurrying inside, I strode past him and turned to face the owner, placing my luggage to rest on the floor, and then I said, "I'm looking for a job." "Have you ever served food?" I had, and this wouldn't be a lie. I had worked as a waiter in an exclusive restaurant in LA. I was between acting jobs when I turned 18, and was told by Sam and my mother that I needed to work to supplement the money that had gone to pay the mortgage on my gigantic home and a place I'd bought for my mother. Sam had said that I could meet influential people in the entertainment business. Without questions, I did as I was told. I made lots of money as tips, and sometimes I bussed tables. Then I got the call I'd been waiting for. I would be the face for a new startup company called Cock. The slogan was, "Buy Cock underwear and you could be cock of the walk." I sold tons of jockey underwear and briefs. My face was everywhere, and men and boys wore the jockeys I'd sold them with just my face as a selling point. I was even given stock in the company as extra compensation. Then, Sam came to me and said it would be wise to purchase more stock. With a convincing smile and a kiss, he'd said, "You need to invest in yourself." I agreed, but he didn't tell me how much he'd purchased. Then one day the stock dropped. I focused on the owner and his question. "Yes, I've worked as a waiter." I didn't waste his time by telling him that it was an exclusive restaurant in LA. He wouldn't have known about it anyway, and he probably didn't care. "And I can do some cleaning if you need that too," I offered. "I must tell you that it would be temporary, and I don't want to make a long-term commitment because I'm passing through." He laughed. "With young men, a long-term commitment is a day, and I don't blame you. If I was your age and a good-looking boy like yourself, I'd go where the women and girls are loose." I couldn't tell him that I wasn't looking for a loose girl or woman or a man. I needed time to myself and space to think. He glanced around with a wide smile and said, "I just bought this place and I can't pay you much. You'll have to depend on your tips, which I don't think you'll have much of a problem, because you appear to be agreeable, and you offered to mop floors." Now that's a switch from the last guy they first hired. "I have to tell you a few things first, and if you want me, then I'm ready to work today." I knew I shouldn't be confessing anything in the chance that I wouldn't get hired, but I had to be honest with this man. The owner gestured for me to follow him to the bar area, where he sat on a stool, and I sat nearby. He leaned his arms on the counter and turned to me. "Well, young man, what are the few things you want to tell me? I warn you nothing will surprise me, so go ahead." He raised an eyebrow. "Don't tell me you're underage because I can't hire you. Other than that, you're hired." Then he glanced over at me. "No. You don't have that look." "What look is that?" I questioned, waiting to hear him out. "That you've just committed a crime." He chuckled. "I'm old enough to know human nature, so what bad thing in your life you've done that I would be interested in?" "No, that's not it. I wanted to warn you that I'm gay." And what does that have to do with you working in here? We don't have a policy where we're concerned about who you choose to like or fall in love with. I don't care whether you like men or women. I prefer that you don't date any of our clients, and if you do, they can't hang around and cause any problems. Can you promise me that one thing? That in itself was a no-brainer. Me date anyone? No way, not after what I'd been through. Well, this appeared to be the easiest interview I'd ever had, and considering that I didn't know anyone, and I wasn't looking for a relationship, that was a given, no dating. I can promise to do that. Then we'll have no problems. He extended his hand for a shake, and I took it. He introduced himself. My name is Jim Burdine. Call me Valentine. It's my surname, but that's the one I go by. Okay, Valentine. Do you have a place to stay? I bit down on my bottom lip and met Jim's eyes. No. Can you tell me where I can get a bed for a few nights? We have a bed and breakfast inn on the outside of Nevermore, but you won't be happy there. The lady that runs that place inherited it from her parents, who had hordes of cats in and outside and a few dogs. The fighting amongst that group and the noise alone will drive you insane. Some people from out of town go there for the entertainment. She has birds and peacocks running around the place. If you've never heard a peacock during mating season, well, all I can say is the sound is different. I guess that's all the entertainment you can expect. A young man like yourself, if you're looking for excitement, that's pretty much all we have, except for the state fair which comes to town once a year, the coffee shop across from the college. You can meet people your age there. We do have some clubs outside of town. Other than that, I don't know because I'm a certain age and I try to get my rest. I managed a smile, and he continued with the cats. I guessed he wasn't keen on cats, and I wondered why he was trying to dissuade me from going to the bed and breakfast inn. If I were you, I'd try to look for someplace else. If the cats don't beat you to the sparse breakfast of tea and toast in the mornings, the dogs will be begging for the rest. But to her credit, and from what I hear, she has the best tea in town. She gets a special blend called B Loves V from Coffee, Tea and Thee. That's why she still has people who stop there for the night. It's an animal and tea drinker's heaven, and her prices are reasonable. I wondered how reasonable were her prices, because until I got my first paycheck, I would have to stay here or on the street. And from looking at this pristine little town, they had no homeless. Maybe the good people offered someone like me a place to work and sleep. When I hadn't said anything, the owner said, "You'll starve if you go there, and looking at you, you need a good home-cooked meal. Make up your mind." I didn't tell him that I hardly had enough for breakfast. Other than that, we have motels, but they're expensive and too far if you don't have a car. I can do you one better. You can sleep in the storeroom on the cot in there, if you don't mind roughing it. It's not fancy, and my mother brings in fresh linen and food on days I have to stay late. She loves to take care of me, and she will love you. I'm too old to be coddled, and you're just the right age for her motherly instincts. I can tell her that you'll eat the food and she'll be pleased. If you want to make her happy, then let her wash your clothes too. I can eat her food, but I don't want to impose on her with the washing, I protested. Judging by the few clothes you have in that backpack, and that little suitcase you're carrying around, you'll need fresh clothing, and don't be ashamed to let her launder your things. She raised 5 boys. She gets along with boys well, Jim added. After he showed me around the bar, I followed him to the storeroom. It looked like my childhood bedroom without celebrity posters. I was at home. I chuckled, because there was a time when I did want to feel like a child, because I knew I'd never been one. Now, for the first time in my life, it was as if I belonged somewhere, not in a storeroom but in this town. I fell asleep, and when I woke I could hear the chatter of voices and laughter. I smelled beer and all type of beef sandwiches, and there was no way I could forget the smell of a cheeseburger being grilled. The door opened and Jim stood holding a large white plate filled with pickles, onions, lettuce and tomatoes, and a hamburger patty with cheese dripping over the side, and a cold Coke. I thought you'd need to eat first. I didn't expect it to get this crowded, although that was the main purpose I'd bought the place. The town is expanding, and the place is full tonight. Do you think you can fill in? What? I couldn't tell him no. Of course, I'm ready to start work. I didn't want it to be a Saturday night when all these college students would be in the place. I thought a weekday would have been better. No. I'm happy to help out. You were kind enough to hire me. The least I can do is be of use and show you that I'm up for the job. What I really need is a bartender. I couldn't tell him that I was 19 and never had any skills in mixing drinks, but I think he knew that. You can take the sandwich and food orders and serve beer. When it's slow during the week, I'll show you how to mix drinks and what garnish to place. Sort of mentor you on how everything is done. He pulled out a book and dropped it on the cot. In the meantime, study this and you should be okay, he said. You look like a quick study. He gave me a broad smile. Those were the same words my agent said to Sam when he convinced my mother to put me into the movies and commercials as a very young kid, and he was right. I made money for everyone, but nothing for myself, because the adults were busy stuffing their pockets.